Hey guys, welcome back. It's Robocraft Early Access coverage. This is episode 11. I'm Enigmius, and today we're not going too crazy. It's not going to be a super long video, but I think it could be a good video because we're going to take a look at my spider with 4 legs, and we're going to take a look at a couple of matches from beginning to end, and we're going to take a look at what's working and what's not. Trying to develop this situational awareness, understanding the important things to be looking at, some tips on when and where to be looking at things that might be beneficial to some people. It should be good. It should be good. So we're not going to spend a lot of time looking at my spider here because we already looked at it when it was under construction in the last video, and it's much more interesting to look at it when it's actually in a match. Since the last video, I've more or less completed the structure. That's with the understanding that most of my bots tend to evolve over time. I remove things, I add things, I turn things around, I do stuff based on what I'm experiencing in matches. If I'm finding that a certain part of my vehicle is weak, tends to get blown up fairly regularly, I'll take a look at that and I'll revise it so that it's a little bit more robust, hopefully, for future matches. Now, one of the primary upgrades that I've done is I've upgraded the SMGs. These are the tier 8 SMGs now, which are basically very, very similar in appearance. We'll go over here just because they're side by side. This is the tier 7, this is the tier 8. Really the only difference in terms of appearance is this little fin on the back. Now this one does 800 damage more per hit than this guy. This one is about 2,000, this one's about 2,800, but this one fires much faster. You can even, or at least based on the sound it makes, the tier 8 fire much faster than the tier 7, and I've noticed since I've upgraded these, because I kind of did them in 2 batches so that it was very, very noticeable, that my offensive capability has improved fairly significantly. It's actually quite nice. You can see also that I'm sure I missed a block or two somewhere, but for the most part this is all the tier 6 blocks, the blue ones, and starting to spread across the vehicle are the tier 7 yellow blocks that I've gained access to just for more armor, really, is the only reason. And what I've been doing is, as I replace the blue blocks with the yellow blocks, I take the blue blocks and I put them on my tier 6 SMG hover, which is kind of having a hard time staying tier 6 right now. Every time I add something, it wants to jump up into tier 7. But it's a little bit more blue now than it was in the past. Also, I've added these things here that it just so happened that they wound up looking kind of like mandibles on a spider. These little guys here. But they exist for the sole purpose of giving a little bit of extra protective coverage to the SMG mounts on the very front of the vehicle. I can't say that I've really noticed that I lose these more often than I expected, but it's just, it was bothering me that it was such an obvious thing. Like, this was a very easy block to hit before I added these, and then it's just one block, there goes a gun. So we don't really want to put ourselves in that situation if we can avoid it, so I just put a little bumper, so to speak, covering each one. Beyond that, I also, because we were having in the last episode a little difficulty with the flipping mechanism, so rather than using a flipper, which is kind of hit or miss whether or not it's going to work, I decided to go with upside down mounted thrusters, so that if the spider ends up upside down, I can just press shift and it will raise the back end of the spider up and actually flip the whole thing around so that I'm righted again. And it's actually very, very effective, but I didn't have enough thrusters. When I originally started building the chassis, I had these 4 tier 2 thrusters. And that was enough to do the flipping, and I was very happy with it. But then as we started adding blocks, like this very large back end section, it wasn't enough thrust from those 4 thrusters, so I added these ones here. I think these are tier 3. I added 3 of them, and that basically gives me enough thrust to flip the vehicle if I get flipped over, which happens quite a bit when I'm jumping around, especially jumping on vertical faces, because there's really no way to control what happens after you jump from a vertical face. So that's the spider. Basically, like I say, it's going to change, it's going to evolve, but for all practical intents and purposes, we're in pretty good shape. It's a very large vehicle relative to what you'll find in most matches, but let's talk about large vehicles, small vehicles, this, that, and the other thing in those matches, and we can talk a little bit about strategy and various things to keep an eye out for in a productive way. I've got 2 matches to look at this time around, both with different outcomes. We're going to talk a tiny bit about spider strategy. We're going to talk mostly about trying to keep that big picture mentality, the situational awareness that allows us to make decisions that quite often kind of mean the difference between success and failure. I've noticed one thing with the legs. Everyone, as soon as they get the vehicle with the legs, they just, every wall, they want to climb it. You know, they don't start out the match looking for a strategic place to go to contribute to defeating the enemy. They're looking for the first wall they can climb. I did it because you want to test it out. Even if you've been in the practice course, you want to see what you can do as a spider hanging off a wall. Not always the best course of action. And this is one of the maps where, especially going along this flank, it could be a really poor choice because it's actually a very uneven, very difficult place to maneuver as a spider on a wall. So that's why I've stayed on the ground, even though I'm a very slow vehicle when I'm just walking along the ground. The strength of these vehicles is being able to go and stay where other vehicles can't. A hover vehicle and a flyer can go up a wall, but they can't stay in one spot once they get 3/4 of the way up there. So that's something to keep in mind. You hear that sound? That sound means something is happening that requires my attention. It means that a base is being captured. Now, it could be our base, it could be the enemy base. The only way to know is to look up the screen and check. If I see the blue line advancing from the top middle of the screen towards the left, the enemy is capturing our base. If it's a red line from the top middle to the right, then we're capturing their base. In this case, the enemy was capturing our base, and I was close enough that I felt it was worthwhile to turn around and make sure that our guys had it under control, interrupting the cap, which they did. So then I turn around and advance the other way. The idea here is I'm never putting myself in a position where I'm sitting and waiting for the enemy. That's a really kind of timid, novice tactic. Just, I'm going to ambush, right? What it's really saying is I'm not confident enough to push forward. The only way you get the confidence is by doing, and you make a lot of mistakes, and you have a lot of humiliating deaths, and eventually you start to get the hang of it, you start to push forward, you start to learn the benefits of putting pressure on the enemy. Not killing them all, we're not advancing to be Rambo heroes, killing everybody, but putting pressure on them, putting them in a state where they don't get to make whatever decisions they want. They have to react to what we're doing, and in that case, I wasn't even interested in killing that bot. He fell off a rock. I didn't know what kind of shape he was in. It was worth my while to peek down, and then while I was there, I thought, might as well. Now, I'm continuing to push through here. I'm looking at the minimap. What I'm seeing is not very good. We're kind of scattered all over the map. We have no coverage in the south, really. I don't know what I'm going to find by way of enemy vehicles around the cap, so this is where I'm going to take advantage of the walker's legs. We're going to scale the wall a little bit, put ourselves in an unconventional position where the bad guys wouldn't necessarily think to look for us right away. Check back and see how we're all... There's 4 vehicles over towards our cap playing defense. I don't even... It's working, but it's questionable strategy to have so many vehicles hovering around our cap. I didn't even see that guy when I first came up over that rise. AFK, I don't know, free kill. And now I'm capping, and it's not because I have this mentality that I need to cap in every match. It's not because I think that this is the best way to win. It's because I pushed through my flank, and this is where I ended up. There are 3 enemy vehicles, looking at the roster, that are still in some way functional. They could all be crippled in a crevasse somewhere where we'll never find them. We can waste a lot of time waiting on a maybe when we could just get on the cap, and that means from the time we start capping until the time we're done capping is what the rest of the people on my team have to work with to find the enemy and wipe them out. If they don't find them, that's fine. We're still going to win, and we're going to end up back in the garage with the win, all the bonuses that come with the win. Everybody's happy. We get into the next match. We start earning RP and tech points all over again, as opposed to driving around doing nothing, trying to find a handful of vehicles that may or may not be worth the effort to find and kill. So one of the things that I can suggest as we come to the end of this specific match when you're sitting on the cap is you're never just sitting on the cap. There's still enemy flyers potentially flying around, drones, whatever. Keep looking around. Keep your eyes kind of as much upward as along the ground. The bad guys aren't always going to show up on wheels. So that was a win. That was a good one. And for 52 tech points, I'd do it again. The RP isn't so great compared to what you can apparently get like tier 10. But for 52 tech points, I'll never complain about that. Now this is going to be a different outcome. I'm warning you now. It's a little bit of a different spot. I kind of think that I probably should have made some different decisions, but you'll see that I didn't really get a chance to do a whole lot. We're doing a little spider parkour here. Trying to get ourselves into position as quickly as we can. Means we go up the little rock, and then we take advantage of our thrusters that we need to upgrade to get across to the big rock. Find out the big rock. Oh, in the face. We gotta be careful when we're navigating up the mountain because it's treacherous. It looks like you might be able to dance around it, but no, it actually in the face. So now I'm up on this ledge, and I see my entire team has gone down the other flank, with the exception of a couple of guys hanging around our base. That's not really ideal, but it's not really avoidable.
SMG walker spotted.
Yeah,
SMG hover spotted.
You hear that? All those tanks being spotted, all those bots. That's me. That's me spotting them. My team has no idea what's going on around them, and that's the bigger problem, because you can't fault people for choosing one flank or the other, because there's really no communication at the beginning of a match. And even if there is communication, I know people say communicate, coordinate. The thing is, that assumes that everyone on your team is going to pay attention and care. Most of the time they don't, which is not good. I'm not defending it. I'm just saying, realistically speaking, I learned a long time ago very little point in trying to communicate with random people, because for the most part they're not going to see it, and the ones who do see it most of the time aren't going to do anything about it. So we've got guys going up a flank. They're starting to see on the minimap how they're spread out. That's bad. See, it's gone from less than ideal with half our team going one way and the other half not going anywhere to a group of players moving through an area but not knowing where the enemy is, as evidenced by the fact that none of the enemies were spotted until I started spotting them, to worse, which is they're spread out all the way across the southern lane, and that's just not a good situation, and it's cost us. If you look at the roster now, just like that. As heavy scout / Overwatch, I would have liked to have been a little bit closer to the bulk of my team so that I could have been in more of a supportive role. But realistically speaking, as soon as I realized where I was relative to them, there was no way I was going to catch up to them in time to make a difference. So you get what we have here, which is failure to communicate. And it's a loss. There's nothing more to be said. It's just me against the rest of the team. There's too many of them and only one of me. So they're going to cap. They're going to cap on my face, but I'm not going to make it easy for them. Wait till you see that spider jump assault. Let me know what you think of this format. Taking a look at matches and discussing what's going on. If you like it, I'll do more. If everyone universally hates it, I'll do something else. It's all cool. If you want to be notified when I add the next episode, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel and or follow me on the social media. Links for social media in the information section below the video. Please do leave your comments and feedback in the comment section below the video or on Reddit or wherever it is that you found this video. As always, guys, thanks for watching and take care.